The 2024 presidential field is set to get a little bigger this week, with former South Carolina Governor and UN Ambassador Nikki Haley scheduled to announce her bid Wednesday before hitting the ground running with a few events in New Hampshire next weekend. Haley will double the Republican primary field once she makes that announcement. This is a graphic we expect to update many times over the next several months. We'll be adding a lot of names to that. Joining me now on set is Tia Mitchell, Washington correspondent for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, former New York Democratic Congressman Joe Crowley, and President and CEO of the Republican Main Street Partnership, Sarah Chamberlain. Thanks to all of you for being here. So I just spoke to Ambassador John Bolton about where he is in his decision-making process, about whether he's going to run. He had some interesting comments about Nikki Haley. I'm going to play them, get everyone's reaction on the other side.
I think Nikki's really running for vice president. That's my sense. I think she has a problem because she first said she wouldn't run if President Trump ran. And her justification for changing was that a lot of things have changed, which I don't think is very convincing.
So you think she has a credibility problem going into this race?
I think Trump will have a lot of fun with her. I quoted Mike Pompeo in my book, something he said about Nikki Haley. He said she's light as a feather.
Tia, people are going to seize on that flip-flop by Haley right off the bat.
Yeah, I think it's true. And I think that Nikki Haley's going to have to deal with that on the campaign trail, and she's going to have to deal with that in the tax she's already receiving from former President Trump. But I do think Ambassador Bolton, the way he's talking about her is he's talking about her almost as someone he sees as a threat, because it's like, if you truly believe she's not a serious candidate, why come so hard after her and she hasn't even announced yet?
Sarah, what do you make of that, and what are you expecting? What lane does Nikki Haley occupy, and how quickly does she need to clarify where she stands on former President Trump?
She needs to clarify immediately where she is on Donald Trump, but she clearly sees a lane, and I think the lane is suburban women. We've done some polling. They like her. They don't care for Trump. We already know that. So she does have a possible lane. I think it's pretty exciting that she's announcing.
And Joe Crowley, as you watch the Republican field get bigger and bigger, it's going to be one candidate bigger on Wednesday. What's the take inside the Democratic Party? What are people saying about some of these contenders?
Yeah, probably good for Trump. The more the merrier, as far as he's concerned, because he controls, a very large plurality maybe within the Republican Party at this point in time. But for anyone to call Nikki Haley a flip-flop, I mean, they're all flip-floppers. They all worked for President Trump, and now they're running against him.
Well, and one person who has not flip-flopped is his former press secretary, Sarah Sanders, who gave the Republican response after the State of the Union. And I want to play a little bit of what Sanders had to say, because she's in such stark contrast to a Nikki Haley. Let's take a listen.
While Democrats in Washington bear much responsibility for the problems facing America today, they do not bear it alone. There is more than enough blame to go around.
The dividing line in America is no longer between right or left. The choice is between normal or crazy.
Boy, Sarah, those are very different views. Now, of course, that was former Governor Haley's Republican response several years ago in 2016. But still, it does really highlight the divide within the Republican Party. Are we going to basically see the party in 2024 break into the Trump, anti-Trump branches?
We may. We're certainly working very hard not to make that happen, because if we do break in, we cannot win. And we need to focus on winning. We haven't won in many years, and we need the White House back for many reasons.
Yeah, Tia, it's expected that Tim Scott might get in. Ambassador Bolton says he's still a possibility. A lot of people say the more crowded this is, the better for former President Trump.
Right. I think that's what Representative Crowley was getting at earlier.
Yeah.
It's true, because in Republican primaries, it's winner take all. You don't have to get a majority of votes. You just have to get more votes than everyone else. And we know President Trump's going to start out with, maybe about 30% of support in any given time. So if there are the more candidates, the more likely they'll split the field. If no one else can get more than 30%, that's a Trump nominee.
Yeah,
that's frankly how we won last time. There's so many candidates on the stage, and they didn't take him seriously, so nobody attacked him, and There he is. He won the primary and the general.
You're so right, and that's something I had asked Ambassador Bolton about the last time I had a chance to talk to him. You know, would he get out if he felt like it was just too crowded and helping to pave the way for Trump?
But I also just think that typically a primary is kind of a healthy thing, you know, get these issues out there. I think in this particular case, this could be a very ugly primary for Republicans, and the divide, the potential for a real divide is real.
Right.
Who's the Republican that Democrats are most afraid of? Is it Ron DeSantis? At this point?
I think Ron DeSantis has the youth factor going for him to some degree, comes from a more conservative, I think more ideologically conservative. I don't think anyone really thought that Donald Trump believed half of what he said. But Ron DeSantis actually does believe what he says. So I think there's maybe more fear that maybe in the same sense of Mike Pence believes what he says as well. That they're really more hardcore, hardline conservatives. I think that's where the fear comes.
Let's talk about President Biden. Poll numbers, as we know, he's struggling there. There are concerns about his age when he gets reelected, and yet Democrats seem to be largely coalescing around him already. Let's take a look at what some governors had to say when they met with President Biden over the weekend. They were asked about this.
The president has said he's going to run. He'll have my support.
He has what it takes. And you've started to see, he was up in New York with Governor Hochul and myself on the Gateway Tunnel a couple of weeks ago, the biggest infrastructure project in the history of our country. I think you're going to see more and more of that. And when you do, you're going to see, I believe, a significant shift in the numbers and reality.
He's the same Joe Biden we always knew. I knew when he was vice president. He is a class act. He is on the top of his game. There's no question about that.
Joe, you just said primaries are a good thing. Doesn't seem like there's going to be a very robust Democratic primary.
I'm not suggesting when you're an incumbent that the primary is a good idea. But I do think that President Biden really showed his true goods last week during the State of the Union address. His banter, his able to go and maneuver Republicans and put them against the ropes, and he was Muhammad Ali when it came to last week, and really how we dealt with Republicans on the issue of Social Security and Medicare, got them to turn their positions around. I don't mean they're not all that way, but there has been some evidence of Republicans suggesting sunsetting of these programs, and able to turn that around them. Whether you think they're for it or not, it's irrelevant. He was able to do that to the entire party.
Sarah, you had a comment.
Well, the Republican Main Street Partnership members never wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare. So when they stood up for him, they were just supporting something he had said that they had believed in from day one.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, I think it was good for President Biden to kind of get this agreement on Social Security and Medicare. That being said, what was even, to me, a bigger win for him is the fact that he sparred in real time, went off script, and it kind of combats this messaging that he's senile and doesn't know what he's talking about. That, to me, is what...
That's more the evidence I was trying to say, too, not necessarily on Social Security.
But he had one good night. I mean, really, he's going to be 82
I think
when he
he's had great
runs.
days when he goes to these states and he talks about his accomplishments. I think he's going to continue to do that because there's not a lot going to get done during these next 2 years, I don't suspect.
And really, the one Republican who has put forward a plan that would make significant changes to Medicare and Social Security is Senator Rick Scott. And so you have Republicans very forcefully making that point as well. Can we just talk about that issue, though? Because, Tia, at some point, lawmakers are going to have to address the issue of Medicare and Social Security. There used to be commissions formed, committees that were studying ways to make it solvent over the years. How did we get to a place where you can't even talk about it?
Well, it's called polling, and it's called the baby boomers aging into retirement, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean they shouldn't. Congress should be able to do the hard thing. But with the way polarization, the constant election cycle makes it even tougher. I think Republicans, though, have painted themselves into a corner because they're the ones who have been saying we've got to rein in spending. We can't just raise the debt limit without talking about spending, but yet the big driver of spending and debt is Social Security and Medicare. And now they're the ones saying, no, we don't want to touch it. Well, then what do you want to do?
Sarah, how do we get to a place, and when does that happen, when this becomes a discussion where Democrats and Republicans can sit down and say, okay, we do have to find some solutions to this, and I think it's not a political third rail?
It's going to be a political third rail for the next few years, for sure. The last time we had a chance of doing it was when President Obama was there, and frankly, he kind of dropped the ball on it. So it's going to be years before we get there again.
Joe, what's your take?
Well, I think Tia's right, though. I think we wouldn't be talking about Social Security or Medicare right now, but for the debt ceiling, and that is wholly a Republican idea of not passing the debt ceiling relief. That didn't come out of Democrats. And what they're basically saying, Democrats are saying, Republicans, tell us what you will cut. Yeah. We have some ideas out there. We know what Rick Scott is saying. What do you all think? Where are we going to make these cuts? And in that absence, we can only assume, as Tia is saying, the largest programs are these entitlement programs.
All right. Well, we'll go. We are unfortunately out of time, but to be continued. The debt ceiling conversation will be one we'll be having for a long time. Great conversation. Thank you, Tia, Joe, and Sarah.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.